Kick and bass. It's difficult. I get it. It's difficult. But there are some things that you can do to make it much, much easier. Hey guys, Dilby here. Welcome back to the channel. Today what we're going to talk about is how to get separation in your kick and bass. This is something that I see a lot of people struggling with, both when I do my feedback live streams, when I'm doing mixdowns for clients, and when I'm working with my mentoring students. It's a universal problem, and a lot of people seem to struggle with it. So what we're going to look at is some mixing techniques, but also some more fundamental stuff like sound selection and volume balancing. One of the biggest problems I see is poor sound selection, and oftentimes that means too much bass. Too many layers of bass, too loud, just too much bass. Bass is one of these things where more doesn't necessarily equal more. Balance and separation equals more. Just quickly, if you like the track that's playing, it's a new one of mine. It's a collaboration with my bro Albuquerque, and it's coming out next week on Stereo Productions. There's a link in the description if you want to go and pre-save it on Spotify or pre-purchase it on Beatport. Appreciate you. So we're actually doing two examples in this. One is a melodic techno progressive house kind of thing, and one is a deep minimal house type of thing. But they're both demonstrating different versions of the same problem, not enough separation in the kick and bass. If you want to download both of these project files and the project files from any of my other videos, then jump over to Patreon. There's a link in the description. It's one of the best ways that you can support the channel. Now let's get into Ableton and sort out this kick and bass. Alright, so here we are inside Ableton, and this is like a little progressive melodic techno beat that I've put together. Basically to demonstrate some fundamental issues with the kick and the bass that I encounter when I'm doing mixdowns for people. This is stuff that I hear all the time, also in my feedback streams that I do for patrons here on the channel. These are just really common issues that I find. So let's have a quick listen to what we're working with. So cool little beat. At first listen doesn't sound too bad, but what we're going to do here is I'm just going to hit record arm here. We're going to record it out to audio, a loop here. Alright, so the reason we want that audio loop is so that we can compare that with a reference track. So the reference track I've got here is this track from Christoph. I've just got a 1-bar loop here, and I'm just trying to avoid some of the instrumentation as it's not relevant for the comparison. But this is the track. So as you can hear, that sounds a lot punchier and a lot clearer, right? Right. I'm just going to freeze this because it's annoying. What we're going to try and do is reference the Christoph track, figure out how loud the kick is, how loud the bass is, and what frequencies are going on, okay? Because I can tell you there's a bit of an issue going on with the bass here and with some of our instrumentation. So what we're going to do is try and get separation. That's what this video is about, trying to get the kick so it's doing its thing, the bass is doing its thing, and the other elements aren't interfering with that. So the drums sound fine. The kick, it's supposed to be like a techno kind of kick. Yeah, I mean, it sounds all right. The main issue that I have created here is that it's tuned to the key of our track. It's got a fundamental of A sharp, and the key of the track is A sharp. So this is a really common one that a lot of people do, is tuning the kick to the root note of the track. That's going to be a problem because we've got this bass line that's playing A sharp, this sub that's playing A sharp, and all these other elements that are playing in A sharp. So we don't want to tune our kick to A sharp, because then we're just going to be adding more and more energy to the same fundamental frequency, right? So let's have a look at these bass lines. So we've got a sub there, we can see there's a lot of energy here. 30 hertz, 29 hertz. That's just too low, in my opinion. Then what we've got, an octave up, and that can also be causing problems with this bass, right? We've been very cautious there and cut out some space for the sub, but this is ridiculous because we don't need frequencies at 30 hertz. They're just going to overpower everything in the mix. Let's have a look at this. So you can hear, if you listen to that closely, that there's some phasing going on as well. So that's already some phasing, and we play both of these together. There's more phasing, right? So we want to avoid that phasing if we can. We'll try and fix that. But what I'm going to suggest is that we just ditch this sub. I think it's causing more problems than it's worth. But what we're going to do first, before making that decision, is reference. Okay, so I've got some little clips from this Christoph track. Got this one at the start. So he's not got this like rolling 16th note bass line, but it's similar. Then we've got another one here where we've just got the kick isolated. Cool. So what we can do now with this, we're going to use this spectrum analyzer, and we're going to get a bass level for the kick by looking at this little number here. That's just going to tell us how loud the kick is when it's playing by itself. So -6, okay? Now we're going to isolate the bass, which I think I've done here. There's one, and there's another. So we're going to have a look at how loud the bass is when it's playing by itself. And what I'm going to do is just EQ out some of the tops of this just to avoid kind of copyright stuff. So we've got -14. Obviously this filter is not affecting this because this is before the EQ, right? So we've got -14 there, -16 there. So that means in the Christoph track, the bass is peaking about 7 or 8 dBs quieter than the kick, right? Let's have a look at ours. So we can use these meters here. Let's just have a look what the kick is doing. -11.3, and then the combination of our bass, -8. So the bass is louder. We can do that also using Spectrum. You want it set to auto in order for it to give you those numbers. So it doesn't matter what preset you've got, but let's check our kick. Let's put this after. Okay, so -7 and -11, right? So pretty loud. It's almost, the bass is like close to being as loud as the kick. And I don't have any compression on the bass, which Christoph probably does. So that would even bring the volume up a little bit, I would imagine. So what we're going to do now is turn off the sub, then check it again. Still too loud. So we want it to be around like, what, -15 or so, okay? There's another problem with it, all the notes. You can hear the articulation of the bass because of the filter envelope, but although the sub of all those notes is just running together, if we look at the waveform of the Christoph track, we can see that those bass notes are quite a lot more pronounced, right? They're shorter. So let's deal with that. That's one of the first things we can do. So I'm just going to shorten this, bring these notes in. Cool. Now, I do have sidechain on here, but I'm also going to add a bit of volume automation. So let's turn off the sub and let's have a look at this. Right, I'm actually just going to ditch this, make a new one, and we'll grab a drift, new preset. We're just going to make a preset that basically works a bit better. So we'll start with oscillator 2 down an octave. Transpose. -12. Right, so that's going to be our sub. Now we're going to set the envelope 1 amount first. I'm going to bring the sustain down, the release down a bit. So that's actually closer to the shape that we want. I'll bring in a little bit of sustain, maybe bring this release back a little bit, decay back a little bit. So in terms of the waveform, that's looking better than our other one. We can see there's actually separation in the bass. Let's add another oscillator on top. I'll bring down the sub a little bit. Now we can add some filter. We'll just set this to filter 2 envelope. We're going to have a very tight, plucky envelope for the filter. We've got nothing applied at the moment. I'm going to change this to a 24 dB filter. Cool. Now let's add some envelope. And let's have a look at what we've got. So that shape is looking a lot closer to what we want. That's got separation built into it. I might just add a little bit of release. I'm going to turn off these melodic elements. Now what we're going to do is add some modulation from velocity to the low pass frequency. Starting to sound really good. Let's put this to mono. Okay, and we'll bring up this sub a little bit. And what processing did we have on here? Nothing. So versus and this. Cool. Now let's deal with this kick. Right, so I'm just going to turn this off. I've got here a house kick, and what we're going to do is check the spectrum. Let's just bring this up to 12. Sounds ridiculous, but we can see there it's got a fundamental of G, right? So we're going to tune that to sit with our track. So +1 semitone. We want it to be 2 semitones lower than the bass. That's going to provide some separation. They're not playing on the same frequency, same fundamental. So if this feels too housey, what we can do, take away a bit of the top, right? So now we've just got the body of that kick, and then we can add it. So this one's just coming from Underground Shades of House, my sample pack, link up here, a bunch of these drum sounds are too. So we're just looking for something with a nice click, a bit more of a chunky click than what we're working with. Right, that versus okay, so let's check where we're sitting at now. Okay, so we want to volume match it, right? So we're going to bring the kick up a little bit. Okay, that should be close enough. And then let's have a look at the bass. Okay, so that's 10 dBs quieter. So we can actually bring this bass up a little bit and bring this to -4. We might want to fine tune that a little bit, a filter. So both those elements have got space in the mix now. We'll compare that to our old one. All right, now let's have a look at some of these other elements that are creating issues. Go to the melodic group and we'll turn them on one by one. So we've got a pad here. Cool, adding some atmosphere, but look at where the fundamentals are. What we want is some separation. We want space, right? So I'm just going to try putting this up an octave. Carve out some room for our bass, just sitting around here. Cool, so it's giving the vibe we want. We can bring it down in volume even. Because it's up in frequency, it's become more present anyway. So we've got this riff. Boom. So let's have a look at where this is playing. Right where our bass is playing, I believe. Yeah. So what we can do is try this up an octave. Oops, that's a bass. Try this up an octave. Now it's a little bit brighter, a little bit more belly. It's changed to the sound, so we can bring the filter down. But there's definitely more space for it, right? Harp. Just turn these off. Listen to the harp. I mean, it sounds cool. All these elements sounded cool how they were, but there's not enough space for them to all be sitting on top of each other. Let's listen to the harp up an octave. It's already better, but we've got the pad. So now it's starting to get muddy the next harmonic up. right? So let's take the up another octave. So that sounds a lot more punchy than there feels like there's more bass. The bass is more pronounced in the second version. Even though we can see just by looking at the waveform here, the bass is a lot louder. We're going to record out the new one. Okay, that'll do. Okay, so we're looking at the waveform there. Have a look at that. Have a look at this. We'll look at the first 4 bars, right? That, and then let's have a look at this one from Christoph. In terms of the waveform, we're looking closer to the reference. We've also got more separation. We can hear it. So we're in a good way. Some of these have changed in character, and that may not be appropriate for the track that we're working on, but we need elements that fit. So in that case, it would be a matter of substituting out the sound, finding something that sits in the frequency range that we've defined here, but has the character of the original sound. That's a creative choice. But from a technical perspective, this works better. So let's jump over and have a look at a more housey version. All right, so here we are inside Ableton again, and this is a more minimal housey kind of track. We're at 130 BPM this time. It's recorded in, so we can compare the waveform with our reference, and we'll see what we're working with. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak that funk, go bump the subtone. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak that funk, go bump the subtone. Nice vibe, I think. Cool vocal, bit of energy, bit of vibe, but there's really not a definition in the bass. There's a lot of bass, but it's just not really punching through. It feels like it's kind of lacking a bit of energy. Let's see what we can figure out from this reference track. Nice. I'm just going to bring out some of the tops for the rest of them. So we've got a section here with just the kick. Okay, so what do we got on the kick volume? -9. Let's throw that onto our master. And what are we working with? Okay, it's about the same. How do they sound? Tight, punchy. We're like, it's got a bit of mid-range, it's punching through. Yeah. Long, subby. All right, then we're going to have a look at the key of this kick. Okay, so it's hitting at A, and I know this is in F minor. So the kick is actually playing higher than the bass fundamental. It's short, it's snappy, and it's playing a bit higher than the bass fundamental. So that's going to be, I would assume, giving space for the bass, right? It sounds like it's working to me. So let's have a look at the volume of these basses. So we've got a couple of bass notes isolated here. -12. So it's quite loud. -13. So we have a look at where these are hitting. This one's playing on the 16th. This one's playing on the offbeat. So the bass is quite loud compared to the kick, but the kick is giving space. And you can just see that in the waveform, right? And then if we compare with our waveform, there's the kick, really long. The bass, the whole bass thing just looks like a bit of a mess. What are we doing with this bass volume? Right, so we're peaking 2 dBs louder than the kick. So the first thing we want to do here, before we even bother about the bass, is sort out that kick. So I'll just turn off the bass for now. Right, so in this kind of case, what I would do, where's this kick playing? Okay, F, and we're on F. Okay, we're looking for a kick that's higher than F. So this would, but still, it's long, it's not snappy, it doesn't have that punch, that bite, that mid and high range sound, right? So we're going to show this in browser. We're looking at some kicks from East End Dubs. Something like that. Sounds like it's more in the ballpark of what we're trying to look for. Let's drag that one in. I'm going to change this to classic mode, so I've got more control over the envelope and how it's going to work. So here's my notes. So the reason I'm doing that is I want it to sustain, but then when the MIDI stops playing, I want the release to kick in so that the kick tails off. Now, if we look at this one here, we can see the kicks don't really extend past the offbeat where the hi-hat is, okay? So I'm going to grab this MIDI and I'm just going to drag it in a little bit. Right, so we're going to call this new kick. We can have a look at the waveform of this. So that's looking and sounding a lot closer to what we want, right? Let's have a look at the key. G sharp. We don't need to tune it exactly to anything. As long as it's kind of got a bit of space from where our bass is going to be sitting, we're happy with that. So it sounds to me like it might be a bit quiet. Cool, so I'm going to bring that up. Now we can also add a top kick if we want to. We've got one here. So that top kick's adding a pretty nice amount of punch to the kick. So I'm going to copy this MIDI over. We've got one other issue in here. I see this a lot. We've got this double kick. Great. What we're going to do is bring this second one down in volume a little bit, just to make space for the first one. Otherwise, these kicks are going to build up on top of each other. And we're going to bring these ones in, make them a little bit shorter, separation and space. So we're still going to get the groove we require from it, but it's not going to be like pushing the limiter up and like pushing a sub out of whack. Now let's deal with this bass. Okay, what have we got going on here? We've got our main bass, which is like a kind of organ sub. And then we've got this sub. Whoa. Okay, again, I'm going to turn that off. Let's have a look at our other elements. Got a... So it's going to cut out all of this stuff in the sub-harmonic regions of our other elements, of our drum elements. And we don't want to cut the life out of these hats. We just want to make a bit of space. Together with the kick. Nice. Let's have a look at the bass. Okay, so do we want this organ? Is that doing the job? I mean, even just with the change of kick and the organ, it sounds more clean. It sounds like there's more going on there just by turning off the sub. So now we've got less bass, less kick, sounding like more punch, more bass. Yeah, this is a common thing. Okay, what's happening with the sub though? Why did we have it? Okay, so we're playing saw waves there. It's got a bit more grit and aggression. So what do we want to do here? We've got this sub here. Do we need to have two? Could we make this the square? Sounds pretty cool. So we've got that option. We could duplicate this, and I'm going to set this one back to a sine wave. Now let's play it. And I'm just going to cut out up here, cut out the subs. Because I think that's what we're after. It's just that kind of like click, that organ vibe, right? I think we can actually add some more saturation to bring that out a little bit. We can EQ this a little bit, bring up some of these frequencies. That doesn't even have any sub, but it's got more presence in the bass, right? So now we're going to use this version. Let me just duplicate that. So we've got the original. And what we're going to do with this is make this one a square wave. How does that sound? Okay, now we're going to bring in the filter. So now we've got the sub. We've got the sub nailed. It's sounding good, but it's got some harmonics, it's got some body. This has got the character that we're after. So we're going to start with this one and then bring this in. Now let's check this on the master. Where are we sitting? Quite a bit lower, but it sounds like this is... It's got this harsh transient, right, from the sine wave. So how are we going to deal with that? I'll show you a little trick with the glue compressor. Duplicate this one, bring this range all the way down. I'm going to put a utility after here to compensate. So you can see we're clipping this now. But it's way too loud again, so we're going to bring the gain down. So we turned that up by 12, so say minus 10. Okay, what else could we do to try and solve that? Bring up this attack. Okay, I'm going to bring this filter back here. Bring this down again. So we got the sound, but without that big transient. So now we can bring back a little bit of this volume. How are we doing with our volume of our bass? Okay, and our kick was at -9, so we want it to be at about -11. We're hitting about -12 here. We're back in the ballpark. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak that funk up on the subtone. So let's have a listen to the reference. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak that funk up on the subtone. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak that funk up on the subtone. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak that funk up on the subtone. Feel the power of the. So that sounds about right to me. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak that funk up on the subtone. A lot of bass. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak that funk up on the subtone. A lot of groove with enough bass, right? And we're also like playing a whole fundamental higher. This sub is down here. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak. Starting to sound cool. So I think this is going to be a lot closer to the feel of our reference track in the low end. Feel the power of the bass in your backbone. Freak that funk up on the subtone. So it's a different style of bass, but we're in the same kind of volume range, we're in the same amount of punchiness kind of range, and it's just sounding a lot more balanced than before. So if you want to grab both of the projects from this, you can download them from Patreon. There's a link in the description. Patreon's one of the best ways that you can support the channel. I can make sure I keep bringing you these videos every week. Happy mixing. Alright guys, there you go. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And if you've got any tips for separation in kick and bass, then why don't you jump over to Discord and share them with the community. And if you're looking for more videos on mixing, then check out this playlist. There's a lot of gold in there. Well, that's it from me today. We'll catch you next time. Peace.